Thank you all for coming. I'll be speaking about concussions in sports today. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as many as 3.8 million sports and recreation-related concussions occur in the United States each year. And even though this injury is very common, many people do not understand what a concussion really is, how it occurs in sports, and what kind of lasting effects this type of injury can have on an athlete. So today what I'll be talking about is first the medical definition of a concussion and the basic facts surrounding this injury. Next, how concussions occur in sports, and finally the serious long-term effects that concussions can have. The Sports Concussion Institute defines a concussion as a mild traumatic brain injury that is caused by a bump, blow, or jolt to either the head or the body that causes the brain to move rapidly inside the skull. As Mayo Clinic explains, the brain is cushioned within your skull by cerebrospinal fluid. It essentially floats in this fluid that protects it from hitting the inside wall of the skull when you experience everyday bumps. However, when you endure a much greater impact, such as a strong hit to the head, your brain will actually slide forcefully against the inner wall of your skull, and this can then result in bleeding in or around the brain, depending on the severity of the concussion. So as you can see from the diagrams, these just help you understand how it actually happens when there is the impact, the brain hitting the inside wall of the skull, and that will cause, in severe cases, the bleeding of the brain. Symptoms of a concussion include confusion, amnesia, headache, dizziness, nausea or vomiting, and fatigue. One common misconception is that a concussion occurs only when someone loses consciousness or blacks out. According to the Dana Foundation, a sports medicine researcher at the University of North Carolina performed a large study of high school and college athletes, which showed that only 9% of concussion injuries knock the player unconscious. And one of the main problems with concussions is the fact that they cannot be detected. You can take x-rays, MRIs, CT scans, but unless it is a really rare case, severe case, you won't be able to see any of that on an x-ray, an MRI, or CT scan. Now that you're familiar with the concussion, and what it actually is, it should be easier to understand how they occur in sports. Any hard bump to the head or violent jolt to the body can result in a concussion. So it's easy to see why more concussions occur in sports like football, hockey, or boxing. When athletes take what many call a ding or a bell ringer, they probably actually suffered a concussion. This brings me to a very important point. The number one reason why most athletes do not report a concussion is because they simply do not think it is a serious issue. Unfortunately, for some athletes, it is a serious problem that is now affecting their lives long after they've stopped playing. As CNN Health reports, concussions can result in serious brain damage known as CTE. Researchers are now studying this by looking at the brains of deceased athletes, and this is fairly new research over the past 5 or 6 years. The most recent study was of a brain of a professional football player named Tom McHale, who's pictured here. He was 45 years old when he died, and his brain was donated to this research so that they could take a look at it. And he was an offensive lineman in the NFL for 9 seasons, and finally ended his career after he had multiple concussions. Now, Dr. Ann McKee, a neuropathologist at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Bedford, Massachusetts, studied McHale's brain and said that it closely resembled the brain of an 80-year-old with dementia. And Dr. McKee also commented by saying that, quote, I knew that what traumatic brain disease looked like in very end stages in the most severe cases. To see the kind of changes we're seeing in 45-year-olds is basically unheard of. Damage to the brain, like Tom McHale had, is known to significantly affect parts of the brain that control emotion, rage, hypersexuality, and even breathing. And here's just part of the research that they did on his brain. Here's what a healthy brain should look like. You see it's mostly white with, the blue is healthy, those spots. And then this is what Tom McHale's brain looked like when they did the research. And that was only at age 45. So overall, it is clear that concussions are very common in today's athletic competitions, and it is important that people better understand what a concussion is, how they occur in sports, and what the lasting effects can be. I'll leave you with one final thought. It is a quote from Dr. Cantu, a neurosurgeon at Boston University and Brigham and Young's Hospital. Quote, "Coaches, parents, and medical personnel all need to be better educated about the symptoms and dangers of concussions, as do athletes themselves. The culture of collision sports, the idea of not letting down one's teammates or not having the coach bench you because he thinks you're a wimp, need to change." Thank you.